Today, we are answering all of your questions about money, retiring early, travel, our relationship, and lots more.
It has been a full year since we quit our corporate jobs and headed off for a life of full-time travel.
Stay with us until the end of the video because we're going to be sharing the one thing that we would have changed about our first year in retirement.
To everyone following our channel, thanks for being part of the community over the past year and for sending in so many excellent questions. If you're new around here, I'm Gillian.
And I'm Stephanie. We're a couple who saved and invested our way to financial independence and retired when I was in my 40s and Gillian was in her 30s. And if you are looking for more on financial independence and retiring early, then be sure to subscribe for a new video every week.
After a full year of early retirement, we're turning today's episode over to you. We received a ton of great questions from everyone about finances, travel planning, what the future looks like, and lots more.
So as many of you know, we left Singapore 1 year ago after living there as expats for 6 years. We began a life of full-time travel with our 2 dogs, making our way through Poland, Ukraine, Turkey, and Italy.
That's when COVID broke out and we ended up taking shelter in Canada for 4 months, which was really the only country that we could go to. Now we're finally back on the road again and into our second month in Greece. And if you want to know how our first month was, we'll link that video below, and all the videos mentioned today will be linked in the description below.
Today we're answering your questions about life and early retirement. Of course, we received many more questions than we could possibly answer in one episode, but we're going to do our best to cover it all. And if there is anything else that you really want to know, please let us know in the comments below.
Let's start with our journey to financial independence and this question from Danielle. When you retired, did you set the date according to a dollar value or your age or some other factor?
When we started working towards financial independence, we decided on a dollar value that we were working towards and not a specific age. And that dollar value was based on what we expected to spend in the future lifestyle that we wanted to have, which we talked about in this video.
We were very fortunate in that when we discovered the concept of financial independence and did the math, we realized that we were already very close to our target amount, just a couple years away. And this was thanks to our lifelong habit of saving and investing. Another question from Gay Husbands on Fire, who have a great Instagram feed that you should definitely check out. How did you know that you were mentally ready for early retirement? Once you hit your FIRE number, was it hard to make the decision to plunge into retirement?
It was not too difficult to come up with our theoretical target number. It was, however, extremely difficult for me in particular to make that decision to walk away from my career. So I had invested many years of my life into developing my career and climbing that corporate ladder. So it was a huge mental shift for me to commit to starting a whole new life. There were 2 things that helped me make the jump. The first was discovering that there was actually a whole online community of other like-minded professionals who had done the same thing. And then the second was having a year of working every single weekend and burning out and realizing that there just had to be more to life than work.
For me, once we had our financial plan in place, I felt ready to retire. We had tracked our spending for 2 years and done careful research on what our future costs would look like. And those things combined with our risk management plans gave me the confidence to step away from the office environment where I had never really felt that comfortable to begin with.
Our next question is from Goals Wonder Fire, also another great Instagram feed. With all the financial surprises that came up, how did you mitigate the extra expenses?
As we mentioned in this video, all about the surprises we encountered in our first year of retirement, we managed to blow through our emergency fund pretty quickly this year. And this was largely due to all the extra flying that we had because of COVID, and also living in high-cost Toronto for 4 months instead of low-cost Eastern Europe like we planned.
Fortunately, we do have extra buffer in our monthly budget to cover these kind of costs. So every month we give ourselves an allowance. And this is an amount that goes into separate accounts, and it's for spending freely on whatever personal item we want to spend it on without needing to check in with the other person.
So it can cover clothes or technology or special activities like scuba diving. And when we're living in high-cost countries like Canada, we could also use it to supplement our accommodation budget or for anything else that we might need.
Now let's get into travel, which is what many of the questions were about. A question from Danielle. What influences your decisions on where you go and how long you stay? And a question from geek streamers who have a really hilarious blog that you should definitely check out. Are there other criteria you have for selecting the countries you want to spend time in, such as safety or LGBT rights?
Since we had just spent 6 years exploring Asia and even Australia and New Zealand, we knew we wanted to make Europe our next stop, and specifically the countries in Eastern Europe that we had never been to before. After that, there are still many more places that we'd like to go.
We don't choose our destination specifically because of the price. However, we do find that countries that offer better value for money do tend to be a little bit more attractive to us. And that's probably why we love Turkey so much. It's a country with so much to offer, and the prices happen to be low as well.
And in terms of safety, we do consider travel advisories when we're choosing the countries we visit, and we also look closely at the neighborhoods of our Airbnbs. Of course, there are common sense practices to follow in any country, like not going out alone at night and being mindful as much as possible to not look too much like a tourist.
Also, after living in Singapore for 6 years, we're very sensitive about respecting the local culture, especially when it comes to public displays of affection. So as a same-sex couple, we're also able to fly under the radar where we feel that's appropriate.
In terms of how long we stay, let's cover that with the next question, which is from Julie Travels, who asked, when you talk about spending 1 month or longer in a country, is that time usually split among different destinations within that country?
Our plan has always been to slow travel, so we spend a month or two in each destination. Now with the international travel situation due to COVID, we plan to spend at least 2 to 3 months in each country.
And while we're in a country, we like to get some variety by spending time in different cities or towns. So for example, here in Greece, we spent a month in Athens and then another month in northern Greece. We usually prefer to rent an Airbnb for a full month so that we get the benefit of a longer stay discount, and then we can use that as a base for day trips.
Related to our length of stay in a country, Kimberly asked, how do you navigate your 3-month stay with visa requirements and specifically the 90-day limit in Schengen countries?
As Canadians, we are indeed subject to the 90-day Schengen visa limit. So we need to alternate between Schengen and non-Schengen countries. So for example, after we'd been to Italy for 3 months, we had to ensure that we stayed out of the Schengen zone for at least 90 days. Now, fortunately, there are many countries in the Balkans that we're looking forward to spending time in, so we can just rotate back and forth.
And a question from TJ, how far in advance do you feel you need to book your places given your long length of stay? Before we started our life of full-time travel, we were those kind of people who would book our trip 6 months or even a whole year ahead. Now that we're a lot more experienced with this lifestyle, we have learned the value of keeping things flexible.
During the off-season, we're comfortable with booking just a few weeks ahead. Usually there will be a lot more inventory available, and hosts will even be prepared to offer a discount.
During the high season, we still feel it's important to plan at least a few months ahead in order to get a place that really meets with our needs. So that said, due to the pandemic, we make sure to check out the cancellation policy in case we have any travel disruptions. If you like the sound of a life of full-time travel like we have, we do have a free 7-day course to help you design and budget your own freedom year, so you can check it out in the link below.
We've got a couple more questions related to travel, and then we're tackling life in retirement and our relationship. And stay with us until the end because we'll be sharing the one thing we would have changed about our first year in retirement. We had a couple people ask about our travel gear from Find Your Freedom, which is a great podcast to check out. What did you pack that you didn't end up using? And from Tamar, what items did you think were essential that you ended up ditching?
This is really embarrassing to admit, but when we first set off on our adventures, it was at a time when I was really into making my own natural beauty products and toiletries. So this included toothpaste, deodorant, lotions, and all kinds of other products. It was a really fun hobby for me, but it was also about being environmental and reducing my waste. Anyway, when we left Singapore, I was carrying around a lot of raw ingredients for making all of my lotions and potions. And over the subsequent weeks and months, I had to finally admit that it was just totally impractical to drag all of these ingredients around. And I started to downsize. Now we just buy what we need as we go.
For me, and I guess for both of us, it was more about wardrobe refinement. The bulkiest item that I carried around were my leather loafers that I was saving for a nice occasion that never came along. So I finally admitted they weren't worth taking up space in my luggage, and now I just have 3 pairs of footwear. I have flip-flops, I have my hiking shoes, and then my running shoes, which are also my everyday street shoes.
And a question from BWV. Since healthy living is really important to you, are there any foods or cooking equipment or exercise equipment that goes with you?
We've discovered that there's always something missing from every Airbnb we stay in. So we do carry a few things that make cooking a bit easier. And this includes a chef knife, a coffee filter, food containers, a vegetable peeler, and reusable cloth bags. And having those food containers really helps us to bring healthy food along on travel days, which also saves us money.
Now a couple questions about life and retirement. Eva Maria asks, do you have time to get bored? And Nay asks, what were your other major retirement goals besides travel? As we talked about in a recent video about our everyday life and retirement, we really haven't had a chance to get bored yet. We have 3 main activities that fill our time, so hiking and getting out in nature with our dogs, our creative project, which is of course our YouTube channel and our blog, and living as a local in each of the countries that we visit. Now on to more personal questions. So Kimberly asks, how did you two meet? And I'm gonna let Gillian answer this one.
I was still in the Canadian military when we met. I had been recently posted to my hometown of Toronto, and to celebrate my first weekend back, I ended up going out to a bar on Friday and then to a club on Saturday. And wouldn't you know it, Stephanie was also randomly at those places both of those nights.
Yes, so we started dating right away. We got married a couple years later, and we've actually been together now for 14 years, if you can believe it.
Of course, we are a family of 4 because we have 2 adorable dogs. And Leah asks, could you talk more about traveling with dogs? The dogs are such a unique part of your slow travel story, and I would love to hear more.
So this one is Huxley and this one is Jasper. They are male dogs. They are not brothers, but they are best friends. We got them while we were in Singapore, and we were absolutely thrilled to discover that they were small enough to travel with us in the cabin of a plane, which is what makes this whole adventure possible.
It is a lot of work to travel with them because we always need to make sure that all our flights and Airbnbs are pet friendly, but the trade-offs are totally worth it. They make every new place feel like home and help us to follow a healthy routine thanks to their 4 or more walks per day.
There were a lot of questions about our future plans, so we're gonna try to cover them off. Erin asked, I'd like to know how long you plan to be full-time travelers, especially now that you decided to slow it down even more.
Josh for Peace asked, do you think you'll discover a place where you'd like to settle down for longer?
And Verna asks, do you have any plans of settling down long-term in one particular country? To our minds, we're only really just beginning this adventure. We're planning to keep traveling really as long as we enjoy it. We don't have a timeline attached. That said, part of our mission is to discover places in the world where we would like to stay for longer, or maybe we'd like to return to again and again.
The great thing about this chapter of life is that we don't have to make long-term plans. Back when we were working, life was so regimented that we needed to plan out every detail for months and years in advance. So we're really enjoying our new life of letting plans evolve as we go.
Here's a question from Girl on Fire, which is another excellent Instagram account to check out. If we could change anything about our first year of early retirement, what would it be?
The answer is that we wouldn't plan so far ahead. We set off from Singapore with 6 months of travel planned in advance, and this means Airbnbs locked down and train and ferry tickets all purchased.
What we've learned on this journey is that it's far better to leave more room for spontaneity and for whatever opportunities that might come up along the way. So instead of locking ourselves into an itinerary for 6 months, we're now trying to let our plans evolve as we go.
This is really not that easy for me as an obsessive planner, but it's definitely the right approach for this time in our lives.
If you found this video helpful, we recommend watching the next one right here. It's all about the lessons that we learned from our first 6 months of early retirement. You can go ahead and click on it now.
And if you enjoyed this video, it would help us out if you hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for a new video every week. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you back next time.